I want to share with you guys a clip from Bill Belichick on his podcast where he talks about the Green Bay Packers after this past week's win against the Arizona Cardinals. And with Bill Belichick no longer in the NFL, he has a podcast called the Coach Podcast, and he puts out a lot of very interesting content over there. Of course, with his perspective, you can't really get it anywhere else, and so I like to try to find where he does talk about the Packers, if he does talk about the Packers, and I was able to find a short, 30-second to a minute segment today from his podcast earlier in the day where he talks about the NFC North. He touches on the Packers for a second, so I want to share this clip with you guys. And he's talking with Matt Patricia as well as Michael Lombardi, and so those guys talk a little bit, and then Bill Belichick will have a few sentences at the end here. So here we have the Coach Podcast.
How about Green Bay? Green Bay, they handled Arizona last week rather handily. That game was over at halftime, but Jordan Love looks like he's finally back into some kind of rhythm.
The thing I like about Green Bay the most is just they're being able to play from ahead. The offense is coming out and scoring a lot of points, but the defense is turning the ball over. I think if you look at it, they're leading the league right now in turnovers. They're plus 17, taking the ball away. They had 18 total last year. And I think that's really the secret sauce for them right now is they have a great opportunity to do it because the offense is scoring a lot of points. So, it's obviously always easy to turn the ball over, attack the ball, when you're playing from ahead. But I think that's the biggest thing Green Bay is doing right now is just they're scoring a lot of points. They're attacking the ball on defense. I like how they're playing.
The number one thing when you play Green Bay, number one thing, you can't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
That's just happening too much, and that's been, that's a gap in the games.
Yeah, you could see it. Arizona had opportunities during the way to get, and they fumbled the ball. They just basically gave the game away.
All right, so that was the short clip from Bill Belichick. He touches on the Packers and all the turnovers they forced. Same with Matt Patricia. And that has been the biggest change this season. I think we've all witnessed it. We've seen the difference from Joe Barry to Jeff Hafley. There's just been such an emphasis on forcing turnovers. And it honestly makes me wonder, why that isn't always a point of emphasis from every single defensive coordinator. But I would imagine if you're a team where you only have 7 interceptions all last season, you clearly, in the season, you're probably like, golly, that was bad. We can't have that happen again. And so an area where you struggled the year prior, it becomes a really massive point of emphasis. And so just based off of what Jeff Hafley has done when it comes to the emphasis on forcing turnovers, I think that the defensive coordinator change has been worth it. And now we are 6 weeks in, so we have a somewhat good idea of what this Packers defense is under Jeff Hafley. And I would say personally, I like what we're seeing much more than what we were witnessing last year under Joe Barry. The biggest part being the turnovers, having Xavier McKinney back there, intercepting the ball, seeing 3 forced fumbles last week. I guess one of them was basically the Cardinals having a mishap themselves, but 2 of those were caused by the Packers. One by Carl Brooks, punches it out. Another by Evan Williams, punches it out. And this week I was taking a look at some different player interviews and press conferences from Matt LaFleur, and they were asked a lot this week from the reporters about the emphasis on forcing turnovers. And when Jair was asked about it, he went into how it's much more of a focus this season under Jeff Hafley than it was last year. Matt LaFleur brought up how in the offseason he talked about the importance of, wanting to have vision on the quarterback to where these guys in the secondary, they're not so locked into their guy that they are, unaware when the quarterback's throwing the ball. They have their eye on the quarterback lots of times, and that's basically been the focus. And it's led to a lot more turnovers for this defense overall. And looking at this Packers team, there's so many things that this team does well. You look at the Packers rushing attack, second most rush yards in the NFL. Jordan Love has the second most pass yards per game in the NFL. The Packers have the most the most takeaways per game in the NFL. They're third in interceptions. And so when you do so many different things at a very high level, you can get away with some other areas where maybe you're not leading the league or where you're more average overall. And I think that's the case with this Packers defense. They turn the ball over, they force turnovers at a very high level. They're currently the 9th best scoring defense in the NFL, which is really good. They've been much better this year against the run than they have been in a very long time, which is one area I was wondering, would Jeff Hafley coming in as a DC affect the Packers and their ability to stop the run? Or is it just the fact that the Packers and their players just, that's sort of a player problem, not a defensive coordinator problem? And so far this year, the Packers are 11th when it comes to rush yards per play allowed. Last year, they were 23rd in the NFL in rush yards per play allowed. So clearly, there are a lot of things this Packers defense is doing better. I think a lot of it does come down to the fact that Jeff Hafley has brought a new scheme here, a new emphasis, more aggressive nature when it comes to trying to force turnovers. And when you also have these rookies on defense playing at a high level, like Evan Williams the past 2 weeks has been, one of the better safeties in the league. I saw PFF, I saw something going around that he's rated, I think the highest graded safety maybe in all of the NFL. He's really high up there. Definitely the best when it comes to rookie safeties. And when you get that out of a fourth rounder in his first year, and you can sort of have that flexibility to play him at safety, then you can decide to move Bullard to the slot where he played a lot in college. You can put Nixon outside. It just gives the Packers an ability to move guys around a lot more. And Brian Gutekunst, he always talks about, after drafts, that they want to bring in players who have versatility, who have an ability to play in multiple spots. Because let's say the Packers drafted a different safety, not named Javon Bullard, who maybe didn't have as much experience in the slot. If Evan Williams comes in, plays at a high level, you're sort of stuck, either having to bench your second-round player, which you wouldn't really want to do because they're, talented if they go in the second round. But because of that versatility, when you have Evan Williams suddenly emerge, you can say, okay, well, Bullard can play in the slot. We can move Nixon outside. And that's what the Packers have done a lot, the past week. And so that's really the benefit of having players in the secondary, even, of course, on the offensive line, where you have guys with that versatility, that ability to play multiple spots. It gives you a lot more flexibility when it comes to, moving guys around. When you have one guy play really well, you can move someone else to a different spot. So that's just one benefit from sort of how Brian Gutekunst likes to draft. We've seen it on the offensive line for a long time. That way, when one of your starting offensive linemen go down, you're not sort of stuck in a bad spot. You have a lot of different guys who can play different spots. Gives you just more ability to handle injuries, things like that. Because we know every team deals with injuries during the season. Some teams, obviously, more than others. The Packers have had some injuries here and there. Of course, the biggest one being Jordan Love out a couple weeks. Christian Watson was down a little while. Jair missed 2 games. He came back this past week, which did help the Packers a lot more on defense. Devontae Wyatt has been out, should be back soon, hopefully. And the Packers have been able to overcome these injuries, I'd say pretty well. The fact that they're still sitting at 4-2. They're in a very good spot. They're heating up. The defense is heating up. It's really what you would like to see through 6 weeks from what we've seen from the Packers so far. So if you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe. You can also check out my second NFL channel. I put out a video breaking down the Devontae Adams trade to New York to the Jets, reuniting with Rodgers. So feel free to check that video out. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.